Well, yeehaw, all you collector car fans out there. This is once again Jason, the owner and founder of Southern Motorsports, and this is Pretty Birds, another Tales from the Bush for you. So, want to let you know, a lot of people don't know this, but when I make these videos, I don't want to use a lot of AI. I want it to be real, the way it's supposed to be, not a lot of fake stuff. So that you see what you see, you get what you get. So I typically will load up all these pictures to make a video with no audio, and then I make this recording as I'm looking at the pictures. So here we go. Hopefully you'll enjoy this one. This was a customer of mine. This was in the very beginning of Southern Bush, if I remember right, and he had a bunch of Superbirds. This right here was a completely restored 1970, I believe it was just a 440 um, four-barrel Superbird, but what a beauty. And I think the guy lived in Miami or California. You can tell by all the palm trees there, but he was nice enough to share these pictures with me, and I think I had a contract to sell all these Superbirds for him. And there are some beautiful cars. I'll give you that. These cars are very hard to restore. I've got a lot of questions with all the Superbirds that I see out there because I've got over 400 Superbirds documented that I have personally found, documented, taken pictures of, got the VIN numbers, fender tags, and all that stuff. But yet I seem to see 1,000 more Superbirds out there, and kind of makes you go, hmm. That's why it's kind of important to have a car inspected. That's definitely not. I think with the dash cracked and that's not the interior of that car. I think I made a mistake. That's the another car that's coming up. I think the blue one. Um, door jam of that car. Pretty nice, pretty clean. The door jam is pretty clean on it. But it's a pretty sweet car. And one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're looking at these cars, you may want one of these cars. You may really have a desire to have a muscle car, but it's important for you to understand that just because you want something doesn't mean you know enough about it that you can just go ahead and drop the 100K or 200K on a car. Look at the underside of that car. You need to have these cars inspected. It's really important to have inspections like a Superbird like this inspected. There's so many things that can be faked that someone like me, I'm one of my side businesses with Southern Bush Motorsports. I was forced into starting a business called Southern Bush Consulting, and I didn't have a choice. That engine compartment, man, everything on there is perfect, except for the battery. The battery's not the right battery for it, but it's clean. And like right there, you wouldn't know that was the right battery. So it's important to have these cars inspected by somebody, not just a vehicle inspector, but somebody that actually knows what they're looking at. There's another Superbird. That's a beauty right there. I love that blue color. Everything looks like it's done right. Um, and I'm going to go back to having cars inspected. It's just so important because you just never know what you're actually looking at, and you could get yourself into a lot of trouble because you may be looking at a Superbird. One's a clone, one's not a clone. Um, both exact same condition. The one that's not a clone, were respectfully, somebody put the work into it, $60,000 to $70,000. For that same car being a real Superbird, were $270,000. So it's really worth getting a car inspected. If you want to choose Southern Bush Consulting, that's great, but it doesn't have to be me. It could be somebody else with experience. But just make sure that when you're choosing an inspector with these old muscle cars, that they can, that they can tell you exactly what's going on with the car. They know what they're doing. With me, when you call me to take a look at the car, it's $100. I'll take a look at the car from online pictures. My office is set up like an absolute. It looks like NASA in here. I got 55-inch screen TVs all over the place, and I can stand and swipe and look and swipe. And, I can see things you're never going to see, and it'll definitely stop. And then another thing is, generally, I've found that when somebody's trying to buy a car, they get me involved, and I get a hold of the seller. Seller finds out that Southern Bush Motorsports is involved. The BS stops really quick. Most of the time, people end up walking away because they know they're lying. So, just something for you to consider. This blue Superbird here, wow, everything on it is just almost perfect. Like I said before, I could use all kinds of fancy AI, but I noticed that a lot of the people that are following my channel and that are watching my videos are about the same age as me. I'm 54 years old. And a lot of the fellas that look at the cars are like, 40 to 60 years old. So, I want it to be hardcore, straight, in your face, no fancy things done to it. I do the best that I can, and I'm old and I'm just learning technology better now. Okay, here's another white Superbird the guy had. Again, it's the same guy that owns all these Superbirds. And if I remember right, that white one was an unrestored car. I'm pretty sure that was an unrestored car. You got to remember, man, when people were looking at these cars back in the '70s, most people hated them. They said they looked like big UFOs or satellites or whatever. They just didn't like them. It was too much. A lot of these Superbirds sat on the dealer's lot for years, and finally they just got sent back to a place that took the nose cone and the wing off them and turned them back into a Roadrunner. So those cars are pretty rare, but they just didn't sell because they were just a big damn car. And not to mention, I've owned quite a few of them and I've driven them. They're not exactly the easiest car to see out of with that back window and with the way that the whole car is set up. So yeah, a lot of these cars just sit there. That's a good looking interior on that bucket seat console right there. I got a great side tales from the bush for you while you're looking at these Superbird pictures. I had a customer call me once, um, pretty wealthy guy, and he wanted me to drop what I was doing and fly out to New York. I had only dealt with him a few times, but did some research. The guy had money. He told him what he needed to send me. I was on a plane, and within a couple hours, I went to the airport. A lot of people don't know when you got these big airports around. There's that orange one. Now, this before I finish this story, this orange one was completely untouched and unrestored. Enjoy these pictures. So most people don't know you can go to an airport, one of the bigger airports, and there's usually a side airport for private jets, and you can go into the pilot's room there. And I went in there and I said, I got $10,000 for anybody that's going to New York right now. I need a flight from South Carolina to New York. A bunch of pilots raised their hand. Next thing you know, they filed their flight plan, and I was on my way to New York. When I get there, he picks me up at the airport. He said, we're heading into the Bronx. Now, there's a car dealership here. It's an old car dealership. And he's got a bunch of old classic cars on back, but all the new cars are up front. And one of the car that I want you to look at is a Superbird. I'm like, Superbird. Great. So we pulled up in front of this dealership. I remember we were on the road and I was looking at the car. I told him, I said, sorry to waste your money. You can take me back to the airport. That's a clone. It had the wing on it and the nose one. He goes, well, how the hell do you know it's a clone? And I said, because when you're building a Superbird, unless you have another Superbird right beside you or you've got the exact schematics on where that wing goes, that wing's about an inch and a half too far back. So, anyways, I said, you paid me to be here. I'll go take a look around. So I'm looking around the back there, and definitely the wing car that he wanted me to look at, the Superbird, was a clone. And I'm looking at this old beat up Roadrunner. It's pretty complete. When I say beat up, it was a pretty complete car. Looks like it ran and drove. Now I'm looking over the car and I pulled the guy over there. I told the guy, come over here. I said, I need you to distract the owner for a minute. So anyway, so I opened up the trunk and I cut the weather seal just enough where I knew that number was going to be. And I called him back and I said, listen, some of these Superbirds got sent from the dealership back to the factory to get the nose cone and the wing taken off. But those were some pretty rare cars. No, they never made a black Superbird. And it looks cool, but they never made one. So, anyways, I said, this is one of those cars. Like, this car's worth some serious money. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So, tell the guy you're not interested in the Superbird, you want to buy this beat up old Roadrunner. So, anyways, I helped him. I looked over the car. I checked it. It's definitely one of those Superbirds that had been changed back over to a Roadrunner, a 70 Roadrunner. I looked over the engine and transmission and rear end numbers, and from the front to the back, the same numbers matching. It was probably about a seven driver quality, not no show car or anything, but anyways, he ends up buying the car for 20 grand. He takes me back to the airport. I get on my plane. He gives me a little bonus for helping him out. And he calls me about a week later. He goes, you never can believe what happened. Like, what? He goes, I went back there after I dropped you off, parked my car there, jumped in the Roadrunner, drove that car down to a car show, got 80 grand for it. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I got 80 grand for that car. And I'm like, he goes, you were right. It was one of the cars that had been returned, and the guy was actually looking for this car and ended up buying it. So, and well, good for you. You paid me well. I've got no regrets on it. We ended up having a pretty good relationship. He found a lot of cars and tried to help him out. Look at that interior. Somebody customized the heck out of that thing. I hope you like looking at my videos. If you have any suggestions, let me know. But uh, you can see the date on the picture, 2008. This is when digital cameras were starting to get popular. I didn't even have to change the date on it. It could have been earlier. It could have been later. I don't know. Yeah, look at that car. That car's straight. Boy, I wish they did make a black Superbird. That thing sure is pretty, don't you think? I think that's a really pretty car. Well, thanks for coming by and checking out our Tales from the Bush, and we'll hope to see you soon.